Welcome back, everyone. We left off last time by describing producers and consumers. And we identified that producers are different than consumers because producers are able to make food through the process of photosynthesis. Tonight, we are going to look at the process of photosynthesis and get an understanding of how this vitally important chemical reaction works. Let's begin by defining photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a chemical reaction that uses light energy to make food. Through this very important process, producers are able to directly capture energy from our ultimate source of energy, the sun, and make that energy available to other organisms that cannot directly harvest the sun's energy, like us. For this reason, the continued existence of large, multicellular consumer organisms is actually dependent on the existence of producer species. So, thank a plant for making your existence possible. Now, we are going to look at the details of how photosynthesis works. As we do this, I want you to think of the plant's ability to perform photosynthesis in the same way you might think about the process of making a cake. If you were going to make a cake correctly, you would first need to collect the right ingredients. You'd get some eggs, butter, sugar, and so on, and you need to get them in precise amounts. For example, you can't just add a random number of eggs or cups of sugar. You need exactly 2 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, and so on. Well, in the same way, a plant uses a precise recipe to perform photosynthesis. We call this recipe a chemical equation. So, what ingredients does the plant need in order to do photosynthesis? First, the plant will take 6 molecules of CO2, which can be written like this, and which you should be able to interpret as 6 carbon dioxide molecules. The carbon atoms in these CO2 molecules are going to be the building blocks that will be used to make our desired product, the food macromolecule. So, where does the plant get this CO2? Recall that CO2 gas is found in our atmosphere. And so the CO2 is actually absorbed by the plant from the air. In addition to the 6 carbon dioxide molecules, the plant also needs 6 H2O, or in words, 6 water molecules. The plant gets these water molecules by absorbing them from the soil through the roots. So we're going to put this is in the soil. This was in the air. Okay, at this point, the plant has the ingredients it needs. Just like adding flour and sugar and eggs and mixing them in a bowl will be all the ingredients that you need to make a cake. However, just by mixing all these ingredients together does not make it a cake yet, because you need to put it in the oven and add some energy to allow the molecules to rearrange themselves into the cake. In the same way, our plant needs to add some energy to these ingredients so that their atoms can rearrange and make new bonds, which is what is required to build the food molecule. The energy, as you know, is light, which the plant gets from the sun. What do we get once we've combined all the ingredients and added light energy? We get our desired food product, which is a molecule with the chemical formula C6H12O6. You are familiar with this molecule by another name, glucose. Recall that glucose is a type of sugar, which is a type of carbohydrate molecule. Now, when you are finished baking, you may be left with a lovely cake, which was your desired product. But you may also be left with some empty eggshells, wrappers, and other trash. Obviously, the point of the whole process was not to make empty eggshells. It was to make a cake. But nonetheless, you do end up with some eggshells in the process. We call this a byproduct. Something that wasn't the intended product, but that also got made in the process. Well, photosynthesis creates a byproduct as well. And that byproduct is 6O2, or in words, 6 oxygen molecules. Now, we're going to see in our next lecture why this oxygen, which plants make as a byproduct, is actually incredibly fortunate for the evolution and survival of the rest of life on Earth. So stay tuned for that in the next lecture. Okay, just a couple more things about photosynthesis before we move on. In order for a cell to be able to do photosynthesis, it must have two things: chlorophyll and enzymes. If a cell does not have these two things, it will not be able to perform photosynthesis. So, let's recall that chlorophyll is the pigment molecule that is responsible for capturing light energy so that it can be used by the cell to help make glucose. In plant cells, chlorophyll is located within the organelles, which I hope you remember, called chloroplasts. The pigment molecule chlorophyll is green, which is why plants appear this color. Additionally, remember that photosynthesis is a chemical reaction, and that just like all important chemical reactions that occur in cells, in order for photosynthesis to occur, the cells need to have enzymes. These enzymes are needed to make the new chemical bonds that hold the sugar molecule together. Think again of enzymes like little protein construction workers that are putting the atoms together to make the large glucose molecules, storing energy in the bonds along the way. Okay, let's finish by noting that plants use the carbohydrates that we just described that they make for a number of important things, such as growth, maintenance, and reproduction. If the plant has extra sugar or extra glucose left over, it stores the extra glucose as a large macromolecule called starch. All right, tomorrow we will discuss why photosynthesis is so important to consumers. We will see that when consumers ingest producer organisms, the consumer is able to use the stored chemical energy, or food, that the producer made. Okay, we are done for tonight. Please complete your Quizmodo, and I will see you tomorrow.